Hello and welcome to my channel. This week I'm going to start my Christmas presents. I'm going to make a scented air freshener using Aqua Cast and a secret ingredient. I'm going to use this angel wing mould, which I got from Temu, and I'm going to use this product, which is usually for gardening. It's called perlite. It says it's for aeration and drainage. It's a mineral that's been heated till it expands like popcorn. This also makes it quite porous and incredibly light. So I'm going to mix it with the Aquacast and fill my mould, and hopefully this will make the piece lighter, but it should also make it more absorbent, which is what we need to make sure that it absorbs the scent and then can release it again into the air. Before I can use my mould and fill it with Aquacast, I need to find out how much I'll need. So I'm going to place it on these scales and zero them. I'm going to be weighing in grams. I'm going to fill it up with water just to the level with the surface. And it says 14 grams. So that's the number I'm interested in. And I like to give myself a little bit more, so I'll add 5 grams and make a note of that number, which will be 19. That's the number I'm going to need to input into a calculator, and I'll show you where to find that in a moment. So I'll just empty the water out of my mould, and then I'm going to dry it before I use it. Okay, I'm on the Elichem website, and I'm just moving down to find the banner in the middle, and it shows you Aquacast. If you click on that, it takes you to the Aquacast page, and when you scroll down, there's a eco resin calculator for Aquacast. So I'm going to input the 14 plus 5, the 19 grams for my mould, and it shows me that I need 25.2 grams of the powder and 9 grams of the water. So now it's on 0 and I've got my cup on there, and I can weigh out my 9 grams of water, and then I will place my pot on there, zero it, and weigh out my 25 grams of powder. I've got 26, that's fine. Now I just need to add the water to the powder and mix. Not this fast, this is sped up. You don't want to add any more bubbles than is necessary. It does degas quite well, but you need to stir it slowly. Make sure it's thoroughly mixed. And because this is such an intricate mould, I'm going to add a tiny bit more water. You've got some flexibility with the water. You can see it's kind of like milk, runny like milk. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use a Eco Cast pigment. I think I got this from Temu. It says it's fluorescent peach, so I'll give that a go. I've just put 2 drops in a cup, and I'm just adding some water to it. And then I'll mix that, and I'm not going to be putting any perlite in this one. I want to use this as a comparison so that we can see just how much weight saving there is for a mould that I do use the perlite in. So I'm just taking this pigment and using the stick just to paint it along the bottom edge of the wings. I'm hoping when I pour the Aquacaster in that it will sort of run and draw the pigment up, and I'll get an almost ombre effect. We'll see. So I'll carry on painting that along. I'm being careful, I'm not scratching my mould, I'm just sort of brushing it lightly, just dropping the pigment in. And you can see it's kind of caught in the little dips of the wing feathers. So now I am pouring in my Aquacast. And I'll pour it almost to the top and then just give it a little shimmy. You can see that pigment on the back, and it looks like it's kind of, yeah, blending and traveling up the Aqua Cast. I'm hoping I'm going to get that same effect on the front. Oops, that was a splash. I'm tapping and dropping the mould just to try and release any bubbles. So I'll fill it up and then I'm going to leave it to set. I'm going to give it slightly longer than the hour it usually takes because this is runnier. Okay, this is dry now and I've got a lovely ombre effect on the back, so I hope that's come out on the front. Let's demold it. It's nice and firm. That's not the effect that I was looking for. It hasn't blended quite as much. That's okay. I'm going to let this dry a little bit longer and then I will probably try and use some of the same liquid and maybe just paint over the top. Try and blend it in. I've really diluted the pigment that I had, the same pigment, and I'm just going to brush this over the surface, just saturate it. And as you can see, it's kind of running into all the cracks, but it's not on the tips, which is the look that I'd like. Okay, while that paint is drying, I've mixed up some more Aqua Cast and I've got my mould. I've made it runny again, and I'm just going to put a layer of this Aqua Cast into the bottom of the mould, just a very thin layer. Because it's so intricate and the perlite is quite lumpy, you want a good layer on the bottom so that you get into all of the little intricate details. So I'm just gently using my stick to maneuver that into the little dips of the wings, the feathers. Just spread it all around. And then I'm going to put that to one side. And with the rest of the Aqua Cast, I'm going to add some of this perlite. As I say, it's very light and you can crumble it between your fingers, but it reminds me a little bit like almost lava rocks, but a lot softer. A bit like a kind of popcorn or polystyrene. So I'm just going to put some in the Aqua Cast. I'm not weighing it or measuring it, anything like that. Just putting a load in and then mixing it. It does absorb some of the water, a little bit of the water from the Aqua Cast. But you just want to make sure that you don't put too much of the perlite in, that it becomes too thick to actually mould to the shape of your mould. So you can see this is almost quite pasty. So actually, I think I've put too much in there. I'm going to add a little bit more water, just a tiny bit of water. And because I have added some water, I don't want to lose the strength of the Aqua Cast, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit of the powder too. So I'm just eyeballing it, and if I feel that I've got too much liquid in there, I'll add a little bit more powder, and vice versa. If I've put too much powder, it's too gloopy, I'll add a tiny bit more liquid. You can see I'm not putting a lot in there, I'm just going very slowly. And I think this looks about right. It's kind of a runny porridge. Okay, so all the perlite is covered, but you can see that it's still free flowing. So I'm going to fill up the rest of the mould now. And I'll just make sure that it is level with the surface. It will float a little bit, so it will stick out the back. But you can see that it has filled the mould quite nicely. So I'll tap it and just squeeze it gently, just to remove the bubbles, as you would normally. And then I'm going to set this aside to set. And as I say, I have put a lot more water in here than you would normally, so let it dry for longer. Here's one I did earlier, and you can see you get a popcorn effect on the back. I've sanded this slightly. It was a lot lumpier than this, but that's up to you. You have to sand Aqua Cast on the back anyway. This one, I don't know if you can see it, but I've put some iridescence and glitter on the front, and I've just hung a ribbon on it. And I'll show you the one that I painted earlier. That's what that looks like now. So I haven't put any fragrance on these yet. They are still drying. You want to make sure that they are completely dry. And if I just take this ribbon off of this one, if I can undo the knot, I'll just cut the ribbon off. And I think I'm going to weigh them. So the pink does not have any perlite in, and the white one does. So my scales here, just make sure they're zeroed. Okay, if I measure these and make sure that it is reading correctly, 80 grams. Okay, let's try the other one. And make sure that's reading 13 grams. So that is a 5 gram difference in such a small mould. Does that matter to anybody? Well, yeah, it could do. If you're going to put them on a Christmas tree, yeah, it can make a huge difference. If you were to translate that to a bigger mould, also it can make a difference. But apart from the weight difference, there is the absorption. It does hold the smell more, the aroma more. All right, this has been drying for a couple of hours. I just got busy, but you don't really need to leave it that long. So I'll demold it now and you can see what it looks like. Not bad. There's a very small bubble there. At the tip of the wings are missing, but it doesn't look too bad. You can't really notice it. And this is what the back looks like. If you don't like the popcorn effect, you can file it off or sandpaper it off. And it's better to do that now while it's still soft. This is just some sandpaper that I usually use for woodwork. You can wet dry sandpaper it, and I would recommend doing that. And if you don't, please wear a mask. I'm wearing a dust mask. It's really important that you don't breathe in any of the dust that is generated by this. So as you can see, I haven't been sanding it for that long, and already it's pretty smooth on the back. That won't affect the way it absorbs anything, so it's your personal preference. So now all really needs to be done is let this completely dry, and you can decorate the front. Leave the back plain because that's where you're going to be putting your aroma oil. You can use an essential oil or a candle or soap fragrance or just an oil perfume, and put it on the back. And also put it on a cotton bud and then place this into a glass jar that is sealable. The longer you leave it in there, the more it absorbs the fragrance. So it benefits from being in there for a good couple of weeks. I've made a rose, and for this one it was just the lid of a jar that has a rose on it. And I'm going to leave the back like this popcorn. It does give it more surface area, and so I think that does help hold the smell a little bit more. So I just want to show you that you can decorate this. I'm just going to use some acrylic paints. I'm just going to squeeze out a yellow, and I've got a red. I think that was cadmium yellow, and I've got cadmium red as well. And I think I need some new paints. These are getting very dry and old, but I'm sure that'll be fine. So I just need a brush and some water. And again, I want to, the same way that I did really with the angel wings, I want to make this look like a wash. So I really want more colour to concentrate in certain areas. I want it very watercolour. So I've mixed up the paint and I've just got a soft brush, and I'm just applying the paint just to the tips, and then I'm going to try and sort of smooth it down, blend it with, this is just a baby wipe that I'm using, and I'll add more paint as I go, and I'll wipe some off, and I'll even add more water in places and let it dribble down. I do want it to look very organic, very watercolour. I don't want a solid colour on here. Aqua Cast takes paint nicely, so you do have a little bit more freedom to blend colours and get different effects on it. And when I'm happy with it, I'm just going to leave that to dry before I can add the fragrance on the back. And for the angel wings, I'm going to use this an iridescent medium by Winsor & Newton. It's a kind of mica or pearlized additive that you can put with paints. I like to use it on its own. It's a kind of acrylic, well, not kind of, it is acrylic. So I've just got a flat brush, and I'm just going to brush it over the tips of the wings, just any raised areas. I'm not pressing hard, just stroking it very lightly, and it should just catch the tips. It's incredibly difficult for me to show you this on camera. I will try and get some better pictures, perhaps in the photographs afterwards. Now, if you want a glittery effect while it's still wet, you can use this glitter. This is from Stamping Up. It's called Dazzling Diamonds. Any glitter will do. A finer the better, I think. And you would get this effect. But if you want a more subtle effect, just go with the iridescence. Again, it's difficult for me to show you, but hopefully you can see that this has a little bit more shine. So I have my pieces and they are completely dry, and I have decorated just the fronts. This one's just got some iridescent on it. The back is raw, and I'm going to give mine with the fragrance already on them. So this is a room freshener, and I'm going to saturate the back and place it in this jar. I will only put pieces with the same fragrance on in one jar so that they don't cross-contaminate. So I'm saturating the back of this now, just spraying it. Don't care if any goes in the jar, that's fine. And then I will place it in there. Do the same for the other two pieces. And you can saturate a cotton wool bud, a felt pad, anything, and put that in there as well. Put the top on and leave that now for as long as you can. A couple of weeks would be great, and it should absorb the smell. If you have already scented them, give them the scent as well so that they can refresh them all the time. But it's really nice if somebody gets to choose their own scent. So here are my products that I've done. I've got the roses and the angel wings. They really smell wonderful. They've been in the jar for a couple of weeks now. This is part one of the video. In my midweek make next Wednesday, I'm going to show you how I will finish these off and package them to make them look like a bit more expensive of a gift, a personalised gift. So I hope you'll come back and join me then. If you would like to give me a thumbs up because you've enjoyed this video, that would be great, and I would love it if you would subscribe. Thank you to all my new subscribers, and I hope to see you Wednesday.